Hey guys, so I was streaming Quavo a couple days ago, and I got a comment on that stream where it was someone who wanted to get into 7K, and that reminded me of me when I was starting in like getting to 7K, and how much I struggled, right? So I figured I'd make this video to help you guys, like new players, get into 7K. Before again, I like to clarify that this is for Osu mania 7K, but most of the advice will like apply to any 7K game, but also some of the advice will be like only for Osu. So that being said, there are 3 things that I want to cover. First being like reading, second thing being the charts or maps as we call them Osu, and the third thing being mindset. So before we begin, a little bit about me. I started with Osu 4K, right? And of course, like as any other 4K player, they want to try 7K because all the top players on the leaderboard are like 7K here, right? 7K players. So of course I tried like playing 7 with the 7K, like just starting playing, but I noticed that it was like really like hard, and eventually I just gave up. That was until I got into like arcade rhythm games like Sound Vortex, and then more importantly beat Mania 2DX, or 2DX for short. Now 2DX is just a 7K plus 1 game, so basically it's just 7K but with like a random like scratch lane on the side. And then I eventually got into something called BMS, which is basically just a clone of 2DX, right? So now I'm a BMS main, and I consider myself pretty good at 7K, so I figured that I'd teach you how to, what I would tell myself back then, how to get into 7K. Okay, so let's start with reading. Now, the one thing I will tell like everyone about 7K is that it is a reading game. Now what I mean by reading game is that compared to 4K, 4K is very physically demanding since it's very like dense and causes like a lot of like jacking, but 7K is completely different. It's not about like, you'll never run into a physical like barrier in 7K. It will always be a reading issue. Well, when I mean reading is like being able to post the notes, like post the patterns the chart contains, and then be able to like hit the corresponding button. So hitting the actual button like physically on the keyboard is not the issue with 7K. The issue comes with being able to read it. Okay, so how do you get better at reading then? Well, okay, so if you're starting complete from the beginning, let's start with your skin. Okay, now this is gonna be like very like debated, but what I would recommend, right? First off, let's start with like, let's look at the default skin, right? Let's check out the default skin. I already have it. Default skin looks like this, and everyone knows that it sucks. But why does it suck? Well, in my opinion, the reason why it sucks is because how tall it is. Look how tall it is, and how like thin the notes are, like horizontally. They're like very like, you can barely like see the notes. So, but my main issue, what I want to focus on, is how tall it is. For the sake of this video, how tall it is. Now, if you're a beginner, you have no point of reference what I'm talking about, so I'm going to show you my skin, the one I mostly use. This one. And you'll notice that I'll turn the scroll speed to make it easier to see, but you notice that it's like vertically is like shorter than the other one, and generally shorter skins are easier to read than like the tall one, like the default one. So what I would recommend is, you don't have to, I'm not gonna link my skin because I don't know if I can share it, but if you're looking for a skin, you want something where the resolution of the playfield, right, is no taller than like a square, right? Like you see, this is like kind of like a rectangle. I would recommend this being like a horizontal rectangle rather than, I'll switch back. Rather than like a vertical rectangle like this tall. right? So just find something that's like, yeah, I can even show it, like, with laser. Laser's kind of cool with this. You can like add like a box here and like cover, we call this a lane cover, and then boom. Well, this is way too short, but yeah, like something like this. Maybe even like, this is fine, I guess, but something like, so it's not too tall. And the reason why is because, imagine without this, right? Without this, there's just like so much like unnecessary like distractions on the screen, because you're only looking at like this part, right? But in reality, there's like all this like, well, not even like this part, like you're looking at like this part. So like so much like, you want to give it all like the extra space that you don't want to see. So that's why I recommend a lane cover, especially like when you're first starting out, because if I knew that when I was first starting out, like that would have been huge. I mean, okay, if you look at like top players, some of them will have something like this, where it's like very like tall, something like the O2 Jam like default skin. I mean, of course you can play on it, but if you're starting out and like if you're struggling, I would recommend having any skin with a lane cover. Yeah, so something like this is not that good, because there's just like so much like stuff on the, like so much extra space that you don't use. So I would play this if there's something like if it was this. Like this would be playable for me in my opinion. But honestly, this is kind of like a small tip, like something that you don't really need, but if you're struggling, I would recommend having what they call lane cover. Okay. So the second thing is I like to show is, they call it horizontal reading. Now, horizontal reading is a concept, so like it's a kind of like theory. It's kind of advanced, so but I'm just gonna show you right now. So horizontal reading is basically, you want to read the notes as chords. Now chords being like one or two, like two or more notes like at the same time. You want to read each note as like individual chords rather than separate lanes. So if you're coming from 4 key, right? 4 key, you probably read like each lane like individually, right? Like one finger corresponds to one lane, so you just like read each note, like each lane individually. With 7 key, you can't do that. That's why so many people struggle with 7 key, because once you get into 7 key, that's like when it gets hard to actually like do that. That's why I like the short play fields, because like it helps with the horizontal reading. So horizontal reading being like when you group each note as like a chord. So like instead of reading like this pattern as like 1 2 1 2 1 2 whatever, you read it as like a single row, like one row at a time, if that makes sense. That makes it easier to time, like for accuracy, and that makes it just easier to hit the notes. The next thing I like to get into before we get into the next section is like this reading tip. I've never heard like anyone talk about this, but I'm convinced that like it helps. So if you look at my skin, I have the white notes and the blue notes. I should probably put on a play. The white notes and the blue notes. And I do this because if you look at Beat Mania 2DX, like they would have, this is basically a copy of 2DX, 2DX skin. But I read, a helpful like reading tip would be to, instead of reading as 7 lanes, read it as white notes and blue notes. Now what I mean with that, just for now read this as like 4 key, just only focusing on the blue note, on the white notes, right? So it quite literally is just like 4 key plus 3 extra lanes, right? Now this is easier to imagine on like an actual like 2DX controller, where the layout is like more suited towards like the colors, because you have the blue notes like literally on the top. I'll show a picture on screen, like the blue notes are literally like above the white notes. But if you just imagine that, but for like on keyboard, assuming you're playing on keyboard, that makes it way easier to read. You can just imagine the white notes as your ring and index finger, and then the blue notes as like everything else, and that should make it like easier to read rather than like brute forcing all 7 keys. Okay, so that is the last advice for reading wise. Next section, I'll cover charts or maps, beat maps. So the one thing I'm gonna cover here is download BMS converts. So let's look at OSU. So if you look at OSU, let's say you're beating 7K, right? You're just starting out. You want to get in 7K. So of course you look at the rank section. So you just type in keys equals 7, and let's check out these charts. Okay. Yeah, let's come with charts. Of course, they're like quality control, right? So like all these are gonna be good enough charts. But finding ones that are like your difficulty, like you want to play like, let's say you want to play like 1 star, right? Okay, there's 1 star here, 1 star here, but like these are like so like few and far between. It's very inefficient to like go to this list and like play each one. And the charts themselves, I'd argue, like aren't that great for like if you want to improve fast, because they're kind of like gimmicky. So what I would recommend is downloading BMS converts. So I'm gonna exit here. So I just googled one right here. It seems okay. I actually don't know if it's like, I never actually downloaded it myself, but basically I'm gonna link this in the description. But these are just like a whole pack of like charts that I think think you should just like play exclusively. So if check it out, BMS is, by the way, BMS is like it's basically just 7K plus 1, and it has like a bunch of charts. Like, so right here you can see like all the tables this pack has. Now you don't need to know what a table is. All you just need to know is that you want to play Starlight charts and normal charts. And then normal charts are like, I mean all these charts are like ranked by like a number, right? So you can see here Starlight, SR means Starlight. So you have Starlight 13. So this is like the 13th difficulty Starlight, and it's also normal. So this also is a normal chart. So you just want to play any song that's like tagged with Starlight and normal. And like, let's say you first start out and you're comfortable playing like Starlight 2s or whatever. Because I think Starlight 2 is like the beginner level. Like where you start probably. You can, like, of course if it's too easy then you can like move up. Like if it's too easy, if Starlight 2 is too easy for you, you can go to Starlight like 13, right? So 13 is harder than Starlight 2, so it's basically like, it's like star rating, right? So like a 2 star would be easier than a 13 star, so Starlight 13 would be harder than Starlight 2, but it's not the same scale. So just play any chart tagged with a Starlight and a normal, or a normal. I'd focus more on Starlight charts since I think those are better than normal charts, but yeah, just find any, just download this pack. If you're first starting out, you want to play Starlight, try out Starlight first. And then once you get good at Starlight charts, you can start playing Satellite charts, and then Stellar charts, but just focus on Starlight for now. And then let's say you download them, okay? Once you download them, I'd turn on random. Now this is kind of like a contentious like topic, but I'd turn on random. This is a common like advice in BMS, because what random does is basically, it, as it says, like shuffles the notes around so that the chart isn't the same every single time you play it. And the logic behind the reason why you want to do that is because it will give you more diversity in the patterns you play. Now, of course, like this like low level, it doesn't really matter that much, but I think you should just turn it on and leave it on. And it doesn't really hurt you. It mostly just like helps you. In OSU, like it unranks it, but since you're playing BMS converts, it shouldn't really matter. So I just leave it like on when you're playing BMS combats. And speaking of unranked, the last section I would like to get into is mindset. And with mindset, let's talk about ranks, right? So let's say you're a 4K player and then you start at 7K. Of course your 7K score is gonna be trash, but the problem with Osu is that like it ranks your 7K scores right next to your 4K scores, so it directly like compares them, which kind of sucks because like they're not the same game, right? If you play 4K, you'll be a noob at 7K when you first start. That's just how it is. So just know that when you play 7K, your skill won't transfer for like a while, right? It's not gonna. They don't expect it to transfer because it won't transfer. It's kind of like a meme. Like you might have heard that like playing like if you want to get better at 4K, you want to play 7K. That just isn't true. Playing 4K will make you good at 4K, and then playing 7K will make you good at 7K. So, just know that like the games don't connect at all, even though it's all labeled as Osu Mania. 4K and 7K are completely different games, and like I respect like any 4K player that's like way better than me because that game's actually kind of hard. So, with that being said, that's basically it. Don't care about like your rank. I mean, if you play BMS combats, the rank it won't rank it, so you just ignore it for now until you get good enough to like play these rank charts in Osu, and then turn on random, find a good skin, and then you should be on your way to getting good at 7K. Just play more and then have fun. That's it. Thank you for watching.